Before we get into the show, a little favour to ask. If you're enjoying listening, please rate and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you're enjoying watching, please like, subscribe and share on YouTube, as it helps us reach more people.
Today we're going to be joined by a guest who just a few years ago didn't like running at all. Now he runs ultramarathons as part of his job, including running the entire length of the London Underground, which, in case you're wondering, is 570 kilometres. Now, Steph and I have both done a fair bit of run commuting to and from the office in our time, but Jonny Davies really did take it to a whole new level. In just a few moments, we're going to be hearing all about Jonny's amazing Run the Line adventure, how he came up with that idea, his training for it, and what keeps him going.
You know what? I really don't miss run commuting though across London every single day. I mean, working from home has definitely been a game changer.
Yeah, oh my God, same. Just the weaving in and out of people used to drive me nuts.
Oh, I can't wait to hear more though, because he must know the tube line so well. But before we get into that, how has your week been?
My week's been good. It's actually been my last week of training in the UK because next week I'm off to America for 6 weeks.
I mean, that's so exciting, but it's going to be really weird because I feel like the last few weeks we've seen each other probably 90% of days.
I know, right? Yeah, I am. I'm really excited for it. I can't believe I go on Tuesday. So when this comes out, I'll be leaving the next day, which is slightly terrifying. But yeah, I am really excited for it. Slightly apprehensive about going to altitude for so long, because I've never done that before. And just being away from home, because, I do love home.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss Battersea Park, training with Ben and, of course, running with Willow. But it's an incredible place to go.
Yeah.
And, yeah, altitude will be good for me.
Yeah, it'd be great.
First up there. Which actually brings, I've got a cool altitude fact I want to share today.
What's that?
I learned yesterday that obviously, so when you go to altitude, for the benefit of our listeners, you obviously go there to get fitter, and you do that by boosting your red blood cell count because you have less oxygen. So your body's working harder. But it does mean that when you're running, you run slower, so all of your paces are slower than at sea level. Anyway, that's what I thought, except for sprinting and jumping, sprinters run faster at altitude. What? And jumpers jump higher.
What? Why?
I don't quite know. We didn't quite get to the bottom of it.
I thought you were giving us that is a fact, but I need the why. So Can you come back with the answer?
I'll Google it in a minute.
Yeah.
I'll come back to this. But it just blew my mind. I was like, how does that work?
I'm just trying to be scientific here. When you sprint,
I think it's the wind
anaerobic
resistant
as well.
Yeah.
So you're not, in terms of using oxygen, you don't use it as a
source.
Yeah.
I think it's also something to do with the wind resistance and the air's thinner, so there's less of it to move through.
Okay.
But any sprint times that are at altitude technically don't count.
Yeah.
Because they're fast, and then jumpers jump higher, which also blew my mind.
Interesting. Well, thanks for sharing that, because I would never have guessed that.
I know, I'm doing right. I actually have, so this fact came from Morgan Lake, who holds the British record for high jump. And yesterday I was at a photo shoot for Puma, which fun part of my job actually. I quite enjoy them. But there was me, Lena Nielsen, who is a 400 meter hurdler, for Great Britain, and Morgan Lake high jumper. So I am fascinated by other people's training, but specifically in other disciplines, because it is so different. I feel like track and field is a completely different sport. People train completely differently, and honestly, it blows my mind. So I was asking them all about their training and what they do, and some of the things they said, it was just fascinating. So Lena, her training she was talking about how she does tempo 200s, which in itself, I was like, tempo 200s, how does that work? Because those two things don't go in the same sentence.
What is it like? More of a stride where you're not, I guess, full out.
Well, it's the same. I guess it's the same as our tempo in that it's threshold effort
That you can kind of carry on a bit longer after the end if you needed to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But get this. So I was like, right, okay, what are we talking here? What is this tempo pace? And she was just like very casually, like 26, 27. I was like, I'm sorry, what? 26, 27 for a tempo 200.
I'll never run that time ever for a 200.
Genuinely, if I had a week of rest and was told to go and run an all-out 200, I would not get close.
No.
That is
so impressive.
I do not understand how
the leg turnover,
everything, just how does the body do that? And then Morgan can jump, so her PB, which is the British record, is 1.99 m. And then we were just looking around and I was like, hang on, like that door, so normal door height, like this one we've got in the studio, I would guess that's about 2 meters-ish.
Yeah.
It's just, so if listeners, if you're next to a door frame, just go and stand under it and then imagine just launching your body.
And not touching it.
Over that.
Yeah. I think I'd like struggle to jump with my arm raised and like touch the top.
Yeah.
Maybe just. But yeah, like bending your back over the top of that is just absolutely
crazy.
Yeah.
And she does this I was like, well, you must wear carbon shoes, right? Because they give you propulsion. She was like, no, you just wear. She has different spikes to sprinting spikes. Again, another fact I did not know there was more than one spike. But the jumping spikes are different, but they don't have carbon in or any real cushioning. Okay. So I would have thought you would want carbon plates.
Yeah.
The biggest platform you can have,
the
cushioning, but apparently not. So I was thinking about when we were in the gym the other day with Aidan and doing our plyometrics. I know what you're going to say. And my pogo hops, honestly, in my head, I was going like 10 times higher.
Yeah.
But I probably got about, do you think I got a foot off the ground maybe?
I think you got a foot off the ground, but it was quite funny looking at the video back.
Yeah.
But one day we'll do
it. It wasn't great.
We'll measure it properly and see how high we can jump.
Yeah.
Little competition.
I'm not a natural. It wasn't great. And then I just thought.
And that's why we do the plyometrics. You'll get better.
I think 2 meters is going to be a stretch.
We can dream. Well, thanks for coming with those facts. I also have a fact to share that I learned this week.
Go on.
Which is maybe not as educational, but I learned that Miss Rose Harvey is very, very, very scared of worms. And I found that a really interesting fact because I don't think I've met anyone that's so scared of worms.
It's real. It's a real problem. And you know what? So today I went down to I had some 300s. Actually, kind of tempo 300s, but nowhere near 26 pace. And obviously, it's been raining quite a lot, as a lot of our listeners will know, who are here in the UK. And the track. The worms had obviously gone onto the track and then they all just stay there and kind of dead. And honestly, I got there and I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to run through this. It was terrifying. I just had to not look.
Do you know what it stems from though? Because they don't move very fast. Like I can understand the fear of spiders and stuff because they're a bit more unpredictable and crawly, but worms are just kind of there.
I know, but it's just the fact that they're just all, oh God, they're just this thing and they don't really have like a body or legs.
So what about slugs?
Slugs aren't so bad because
they're the same but bigger, kind of.
But so when I was at school, there was this boy who bullied me and basically ran up to me and shoved me into a corner and then shoved a worm in my face. And ever since I've basically had trauma.
Oh.
From it. I'm terrified. So
yeah, that is real trauma.
Yeah. Okay. Lifelong trauma from worms. It's not a great one, being someone who does a lot outside, but Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. Shall we speak to Jonny?
Let's crack on with the show. Thanks for joining me, Rose Harvey,
And me, Steph McCall,
for 5 Miles Easy.
the podcast where we go behind the scenes on the highs, lows, and learnings of our running journeys.
And bring you conversations to inspire, motivate, and get you one step closer to your running goals.
So let's lace up for 5 Miles Easy.
Jonny, thanks so much for joining us for 5 Miles Easy today. Our first question, which we ask all our listeners, is what's your why when it comes to running?
Thank you very much for having me here. Great question. For me, it is the pursuit of something that's almost unattainable. You know, with running, there is no finish line, pardon the pun. So for me, it's the case of you're always working towards something you can never often have. And that for me is the why. It's the constant state of getting towards the thing. The thing is never the thing. It's always the getting towards it. For me, that is the exciting part, is the factor of, you know, going through a state of change from going from point A to point B in your own personal development, in distance, in every aspect to it. And for me, that's such a exciting prospect to sort of visit every time you step outdoors. So yeah.
That's awesome. And so it's really the process that you love.
Love the
and
process.
The training.
Love the process, love the training, love from when you start a block to when you finish the block, not only where your body's at, where your mind's at, the things you've learned, the complete state of change you go through when you push through, because every block is different. Every block has its own challenges and benefits. That for me is what I love.
Yeah.
As soon as the event's over, I mean, the events obviously are fun. They're in their unique way. But for me, the most pleasure is the quiet time of training when no one's around, no one's watching.
Yeah.
You're just doing it again and again, ticking off each session, going through it. For me, that's the best part.
Yeah, it's such a reflection of life as well, like just appreciating the journey, because if you're always just hoping for like the next goal and that's when it's going to like give you the happiness, it's not really, it's all about that journey, isn't it? Not just in running.
Absolutely, because I think we get a lot of people these days, especially new people into running, think that the marathon or the half marathon or the event they're going towards is going to be the thing. And it very rarely is. Often that's people talk about post-race blues, because they build this thing up that's going to be so great and whatnot. And actually, the real benefit is who you are, who you become in order to do the thing.
It reminds me of like just after you did Chicago and everyone was like, oh my God, Rose has run this incredible time. But then like a day later, you were like, I'm not over it, but you're like, oh, the excitement doesn't last. Like, what's next?
100%. And I think exactly as you say, I was actually more proud of the training block. And, you know, the result was great. And I was really happy with the result because it showed that the training block was good, but it's going through that process. And also, I mean, when you're training for a marathon, when you're training for, well, any event really, but especially the endurance events, you've got to enjoy the process because it's 99% of it.
100%.
And if you don't love the training, it's going to be so hard to get out and do those miles and those big sessions. I'm sure you can appreciate having done some enormous training blocks and so many miles.
Absolutely. No, it is a part of that process. You've got to enjoy it. And I think that's where a lot of people get bogged up, is going like, you know, focusing too much on the end result, focusing too much on the destination, rather than, again, that process is what you're going to spend so much of your time doing. You know, that's where it dictates the rest of your schedule for the week. It dictates everything. Now, I plan my life around my training, around what I'm doing, my schedule board in my room where I put everything on. Like, it's my life is around the training sessions. When I need to do them, what is each one, and that for me is the special part. Yeah, you know.
And so many of the listeners will know you from the Run the Line challenge that you did, which was 355 miles covering every London tube line across 11 days, so one line a day. What's that in kilometres for those that work it?
572 kilometres.
Okay, God, it's just crazy. And to cover such a distance, you might assume that you've been running for years and years and years, but that's not necessarily the case, is it? So,
no, not at all. I mean, I do come from a sporting background. I think it's quite important to mention that, because a lot of people are like, oh, you need to run. It's like, well, yeah, but like, I ran through sport for a long period of time. Granted, not distance running.
Yeah.
You know, rugby was always my sport growing up. Actually, running itself, I think the most I'd ran growing, the odd 5K here and there, but it's something I never really got much out of. Again, being on the bigger side of things when I was younger, most people who were good at running were a lot faster than me, and I was like, oh, don't want to do this. So for me, rugby and a lot of strength training components around that was the part I enjoyed. And actually, running was the thing about rugby I disliked the most. It was a thing I wouldn't say like, yeah, no, go on. I'd say I feared it. I think, you fear what you're not good at. It's the case of getting embarrassed there. And again, my playing weight was around 112 kilos. So that was what I was running around the pitch at, which is a lot of weight to move, especially when you turn to distance running. So yeah, that was my sort of starting point many years ago. It was about 4 or 5 years ago. I started going in towards, okay, like let's see what it looks like when I go 5K, 10K, and sort of taking it from there really, and then sort of addressing the thing I don't like or I think is the hardest thing. And I think that's in itself a unique challenge, because you're then doing something again that you find difficult and then progressing at that. I think is a wonderful metaphor for a lot of things in life. There's a lot of things we all find difficult, and again, trying to tackle them head on and then become somewhat competent at it over a period of time is a nice feeling. It's a great feeling of accomplishment to be able to take something that you used to be so negative, have such a negative emotional feeling towards. I think especially with a lot of people, there's a lot of people from a sporting background, running was always the punishment part. Especially in rugby, if you like drop a ball, go run, you shuttle sprints, whatever it is, could be missed tackle, go run, post and back. And it's like everything's done at max effort. And that's like, obviously I learned pretty fast on, you don't run very often at max effort when you're doing distance running. So I think there's almost like this fear associated with running, or it's like a running trauma, I often call it, where people have that association with running in like being yelled at and it's a punishment. And that's how it's framed in their mind of like running is a punishment, rather than take your time with it, go through the process of it all there. Yeah. But people are so used to have a coach watch them blowing a whistle being like, run faster. And that was for me, so.
Yeah. So what was it that got you hooked on it? What shifted your mindset to going from fearing running to loving it?
I was on a work trip to Canada, back in 2019, I think. Weather was awful, flight was terrible. I was so jet lagged, a little bit hungover, and it was a case of I read a few different books over the previous few weeks. A variety of different. I think running was always this thing in my mind that I was like, why can I not be good at it? I don't understand this. And like anything, you're not good at it because you didn't practice it. And I decided like, right, I'm going to bring a pair of running shoes. I'm going to get to Canada because it's beautiful out there. I'm going to try and run. And I ran a 10K around Stanley Park. I'm not going to lie, like it was the most painful thing I've ever done at the time. And I was like, that wasn't too bad. It was painful, but it was beautiful. I was in a really nice environment for it as well. I was like by the seawall. It's really crisp winter weather there.
I was there in the summer. It's amazing.
It's gorgeous. So I was like, it's not a bad place to like first start getting into it. I was like, okay, like I didn't die from doing this. I really enjoyed it. And it was more like a mental clarity sort of thing. When I'm in the gym lifting weights, when I'm like, I'm there, I'm having fun. It's like one of those things for me. It's always come quite easy. So for me, it's not like go clear the mind. Like I'll go with mates, I'll hang out with people. Like it's social, the gym. Running was this wonderful thing I could do on my own and just clear the mind. And that's kind of how I got into it. I was like, it's less the physical side of things. It's much more I really like this hour of peace I've just developed for myself, where I'm not looking at my phone, I'm not being distracted by anything or anyone. I'm just look at what's going on. Yeah. And then did it again the next day and a few more times when I was there. And I got back and I was like, all right, like I didn't die, legs didn't fall off, like I'm still here. I didn't lose like half my body mass doing it either as well. And so I was like, okay, this is cool. Like let's keep trying this. And then obviously COVID happened. So there was no races, events, anything, which meant there was no pressure to do anything with it. And I think, especially in this era of social media, people running marathons, ultramarathons, all these different things going on. There's a pressure with people to get into running to go and compete at something or go and set a time here. So for me, for the first 2 years, I didn't know what a world major was. I knew none of this stuff because it wasn't being talked about in public discourse. So for me, it was a case of like, let's just see how far I can go. Let's see what I enjoy doing. And there was no pressure of having to do anything with it. It was just a case of enjoying the process, enjoying it through. And I think that's why a lot of people got into running through COVID, because there was no case of like, oh, you should go and do this, or what race are you training for? Because no one was training for a race. So it was until the back end, like as we came through COVID, people were like, oh, like you're going to run a marathon? I was like, I don't know, like, should I? I
just love that the benchmark for getting back out there was I didn't die, so I can go and do it again.
Yeah, give it a go.
That was a great mindset. So what was it that you obviously went on to do you signed up for an ultra pretty quickly and have done so many challenges since, but what is it about those big challenges and the big distances that appeals to you?
I think there's an element with it that has to scare you. And I think when I first ran I remember the first time I ever ran a half marathon, I did it because in my mind I was like, that seems quite a scary distance because it's over anything I've ever ran before and it's stepping into the unknown. And because it's scary and because it's an unknown, that's why I wanted to do it. It's like, let's see how I react when I'm in that situation. Let's see where I go to. Let's see where my head goes to. And people talk about running as a journey of self-discovery. I think when you set lofty goals or ambitious goals into places that you're really unsure of and you're uncertain of, and you ultimately having to take a little leap of faith with it to work out who am I going to be in that situation. That for me is sort of the real exciting part of it. You know, it's fear is the spice of life with these things, and that's kind of like the element that I'm like, all right, let's go into it. Again, you can't do these things very often because they take a lot of effort, time, resources to get into these things. So I think it started off with me was half marathon was scary, so let's do that. Did that. I was like, okay, cool. Then all of a sudden I'm just running that distance quite normally, and then it's like, okay, eventually ran a marathon just for the sake of going the distance, see what it was like, and then I was like, okay, still here, didn't die. Then was like, okay, let's actually do an event. So my first actual formal like event marathon was only last year.
Wow.
Like I was pretty happy with running. I was clocking up some decent average miles per week, but like a friend of mine who'd never ran a marathon distance before, he's like, hey, do you want to sign up for the Madrid Marathon with me? I was like, you know what? Go on then, let's do it. And he actually lived in Spain, and we both trained for it separately. Week before, he gets really ill, and I'm like, oh, I've trained for it, so I might as well go over there. And I just ran it like on my own. Didn't have any friends over there or anything. Just like I was like, okay, let's just go like do this. So things like going to like the convention center beforehand to collect your big number. Didn't know how any of that worked. So literally I was asking people in Spanish like, well, how does this work? So that was quite a nice experience to go through, because the whole time I've been doing this running, there's been no events on, there's been no races. So it's quite nice to be able to go, oh, like this is what a marathon's about. Like being in a starting pen, like I'd never been to a race before. Like I've seen people run the London Marathon, I've been watching it, but like the whole process of day before, get your bib number, all this kind of stuff was such a new, wonderful thing. The excitement on the day, the amount of people who are there, the energy as you arrive was such a wonderful, special thing. And I was like, oh wow, like this is cool. And then obviously that dissipates pretty quickly when you're 30k in and, you know, haven't fueled properly whatsoever, and the sun's coming out.
Your life.
I was like, there was definitely reality hit pretty hard that day, but it was still, again, it's all part of, you know, a journey of trying these things and seeing what you enjoy and whatnot. And, you know, for me, that was real special to then go through. And I was like, okay, that was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And yes, I was scared to do it as an event on a stage and there's people cheering. It's really fun. But for me, the things I liked about that marathon the most was when I wasn't around people, when I was just with my own thoughts again, putting yourself into deep waters and saying, okay, how am I going to react when things are starting to hurt? Yeah. When things are starting to become challenging, who comes out then? Yeah,
realizing how strong you really are. So then from a marathon last year, your first ever proper marathon last year, to then deciding to challenge yourself to run the entire length of the London Underground, how did you get the idea to do that? There was quite a big jump.
There was a bit in between, don't worry. So I ran it, basically, I was like, okay, marathon didn't scare me. So then I just started I went through this period where I just run a 50k every weekend just to kind of see what that was like, and then just try and get used to running above a marathon distance so they wouldn't scare me anymore. Then ran the Thames Path 100k. Okay. Wanted to give that a little blast because it starts around the corner.
A little blast.
It starts in Putney, which is the closest starting point for any race to where I live in Balham. So
convenient.
Highly convenient. They're going to run 100k, do it on your doorstep. And it was after that I was like, okay, that was a big jump in distance. I was like, I felt great doing it. I really enjoyed it. There was difficult moments. There was times I was like, I feel awful. The emotions are up and down the whole day. And yet you sort of keep going forward and you keep moving through. And you know, again, you come at the other side. And after that, I was like, okay, next year I want to do something big. And I was like, if I can do 100k in a day, I'm not sure how this is definitely like boy maths here. Like, run 100k in a day, do 572 there. So that's kind of where it came. Originally, I was like, let's do. You know what it was? I saw a TikTok of people walking the Victoria Line. Like, I'm coming to walk the Victoria Line. They're like taking like 6 hours. I was like, all right, let's see how quickly we can run this in. But it's also a really cool way to see London because again, you start up in north, like basically like north of Hackney area, go the way through central. So you're going from like right far out through the zones. Then it gets really busy, and you go through some pretty cool spots. And you go back out to Brixton again. I was like, that's quite a cool way of doing it. And blindly, I went, I wonder what it'd be like to run them all back to back. And so I just kind of said to myself there and then, like, that'll do it. The Victoria Line's like 24k, so it's not too crazy. I didn't realise how long some of the tube lines were.
Yeah, some of them go way out of London, don't they?
Yeah, so like, you know, look, there's like the Central Line and the Metropolitan Line both go out past the M25. So like, I was like, I didn't obviously know this at the time. Like, you know, so there's definitely a bit of naivety in there, and you know, being a little bit delusional helped. So I was like, okay, mapped it. I looked at the total distance of track, thinking that to run station to station would be more or less the same. I think it's about 360 kilometers of track distance. Obviously, you're not running on the track and the underground, you're running above ground, station to station. But when I saw that distance, I was like, yeah, that sounds doable, like cool. Like I originally was going to say maybe do it in a week or something. And then when I actually mapped it on Strava, like station to station to station, I thought I made a mistake. It said 572k, and I was like, there's no way. And no, it was. By that point, I already said to myself I was going to do it. So I was like, all right.
You've mentally committed.
There we go. And then as soon as you've like mentally committed to it and then saying it out loud, you kind of have to do it then. So
yeah. So what was the time gap between that day you decided to do it and when you did? How long did you have to train for it?
Oh, I came up with the idea in like early the year, like March time this year.
Okay.
So I said to someone in March, like, this is the idea I've got. This is what I'm going to do. And then I started my blog because I had another race in America, like a 50-mile mountain race in like, upstate New York in May this year. So it was once I got back from that, I said to my coach, like, right, this is what we need to do. This is the distance. This is do it. 11 lines, 11 days. Like, you tell me what to do. I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm not here to ask questions. I trust my coach. I've got like strength and conditioning coach and a run coach who both specialize in like these sort of like, not say challenges, but like they've got a lot of clientele who have done some pretty incredible challenges like Transcon, Johnny Groats Land's End. Like they've got people they've trained through these processes and have done them very successfully. So I was like, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I just said, write the plan. Whatever the plan is, I'm just going to do the plan.
Did you know at the time which order you'd be doing the lines in? So what distance you'd be doing back to back?
I left up to my coaches to kind of help me plan that, to be like, what would be the most appropriate way of doing it, because the distance, so the average distance, if you took all the lines together, an average out of 11 days would be about 57k, I think. But there's no tube line. Well, actually, there's one, the Jubilee line's 57k. The rest of them are massively under or massively over. So I was like, okay, how are we going to do this? So they were like, let's do high day, low day, high day, low day. So on the high days, I'm a bit more rested. And like, the 80 to 90k days, they would take basically up the entire day. And on the short days, in my head, it's like, it's only like 35k today. But when you've run for 16 hours a day before, 35k is like a long way to do. And you actually felt, and your body's so stiff those days. So obviously, you then get like a bit more of a break in the evening afterwards to do some like recovery work. But it was those days were actually awful because in my head, I'm like, it's only 35, which is still quite a big distance of people. But I was so stiff and trying to get through those days. Actually, I found the shorter days the hardest.
Mentally, how did you get through those days that felt so tough and your legs just felt like running through treacle from mile one?
I always find my thing is just as long as you're moving forward, you'll make it. Doesn't matter how fast you're going, just movement is going to get you there. The second you stop, the finish line for that day is becoming further away because it's going to take longer to get there. So my mind mentally was like, as long as you're moving, you'll finish. You'll finish today in a reasonable time. Just have to keep moving, no matter how. Even if it's really slow, you will actually get to it. Any time wasted stopping was just like I appreciate I'm not the fastest guy on 2 feet, so I was like, I'm not going to waste any time stopping. So every time every hour or so, we'd take some more food on or fuel and whatnot, and I was like, I would just do that for 3 minutes, start the timer, and walk for those 3 minutes, just take it on. And then we get moving again. So it was just a case of like stopping any stoppages. Yeah. So the only times we'd stop is change your shoes every 4 or 5 hours, just to like maybe change up positioning, and just when they just get sore, maybe we put like a heel lift in just to change the angle a bit, just to take a bit of pressure off the feet. That was it. Or sometimes it was like a pit crew. Like my physio Adrian was with me the whole time. He would have like a second pair of shoes ready, pop the lifts in, pop me up, right, shoes off, shoes on, tie to tie, off you go, and just cut down any wasted time.
That's so cool. So who else did you have alongside with you the whole way? Because I know with multi-stage ultras, you generally have like a crew that goes along with you. So what did your setup look like alongside physio?
Adrian from the running room, who was my physio. He was with me the entire way around, like looking after me constantly, and just legend. My videographer and editor Mike, who again, when I told him about the project, he was like, yeah, it sounds good. And then we realized like the extent, he was with me the entire time. So as long as I'm out there, he's out there. And he was like, I think it was like £600 worth of line bike fees at the end of the 11 days. Because it's just like, he would jump on and off tubes, but he also want to get a lot of shots of me going. And it was great. And then we'd have Tommy Trees, my run coach. He was with us on most of the big days. And then Harvey Lawton, my strength and conditioning coach, would be with me on the other days. Then my friend David Burtwhistle, my other friend Joe Bass, they would join me on filling in on the days we need to like get it. And so we always had one of the lads on the bike navigating. So we rented a bike from Brompton, because on the tube, because we had to bring on the bikes on the tube quite a lot. you can only bring fold-up bikes.
Yeah.
So I was like, we have to have a fold-up bike.
So many
for this.
logistics.
Don't. This is bringing back like the 2 weeks beforehand trying to work this stuff out.
Yeah.
So someone they're navigating, make sure we are going the right way. They've got the Strava route I've got, send it to them. They're looking at that, making sure we go the right way, and make sure like, I'm just sitting on their wheel basically. Adrian and Mike would be with us a lot of the time. Again, if we're in Central, they've been a line bike. If not, they'll be on the tube, or some days in a car. And then that's it. That's the crew. And then we'd also have, like, depending on what day it was, anywhere from 20 to 100 people running with us. So that
must have helped.
It definitely did. It was nice. The support was wonderful because we had a tracker on. I had a tracking device on me the whole time, and the routes are publicly available, so anyone could find out where we were at any given time, and just find us and join in. And it was great. When I felt great, it was great to have them in there. When I was feeling really like low or towards the end of a big day, and then someone who's really fresh comes and joins you and starts chatting, it's a bit like, it can be a challenge. But I always said with a challenge, it's not just a physical challenge, it's a mental challenge. It challenges all the aspects of you. It's a challenge of your patience. It's a challenge of all these different things, because like, who are you when you're 14 hours into a run, you feel like shit, you had 2 hours sleep the night before, your stomach's gone, all this stuff, and someone's like a complete different energy level to you, and it may piss you off a little bit, but are you still a good person? Are you still a nice person? And like, it's a real test of your character in those situations there. Like, who are you really like when you're tested? And so for me, the whole time I was thinking, everything about this is a test. Everything about this is a challenge. All right, let's see what you're about. Let's see who really comes out of this. I was really happy that I was like able to sort of go into that state. So even when I was in absolute bits, I was trying to have any sort of conversation, people were talking like, how are the legs? It's like the 70th person asking that question that day. And it's like, obviously,
not good.
It's their first time running with me, the first time seeing me go. So I was like, I'm not going to be like, that's a silly question. Like, nah, it's their first time chatting with us. So I was like, they've come out to support me. Who the fuck do I think I am if I'm just going to be like dismissive of that? I was like, yo, what's good? Legs, they're still attached. Like, and it was lovely. Actually, some of the best conversation, the best people I met was when I was deep in it, like end of the Met line out towards like Buckinghamshire. That was an absolute stinker a day, and that was really like, I just get like 80k in. I'm in bits. We've gone from sunrise down to sunset, and we're still going. And I'm cooked at this point, getting towards the last few stations. Really hilly around there too. Trying to crack on. And some of the chats I had with people, I was like, absolute mood lifter. Because I was like, when this little stage where I was like on my own, I had, when you run with your head down, you're tired, all this sort of stuff. Just basically like living in my own misery for a little bit, just like absorbing it in. And some guy comes up and he was like, his energy was up here. And part of me was like, oh no. And he just jumps straight in there, chatting away. And the first thing he says to me, he goes, I was chatting with my mates, and we reckon you'd be great class on a night out. I was like, yeah, I would be actually. Yeah, you know what? You got me. I would be great value a night out. And just from that, my mood was lifted.
If you want to up your running game with a runner coaching plan, you can get 2 weeks free with the code 5 miles. That's the number 5, the word miles, on the Runner coaching app. It takes one little thing to snap you out of a negative mindset.
Yes.
It's actually something we talk about on this podcast a lot, of like how to get through, end of tough moments in races, sessions. And I always say smiling is, I force myself to smile for like 3 seconds, and it's so powerful. And like just making yourself say you feel good, it can really shift how you feel.
100%.
Just by saying it out loud. It's so powerful, isn't it?
It is. I heard something the other day talking about it was about faking bravery is still bravery, or faking an emotion is technically still emotion, or faking confidence is confidence.
Yeah.
And actually, you can apply the same thing, like faking, like self-humor is still humor. Like there is an element of, with emotion, your body, your mind so easily trick itself into these things. And I always think that, so as long as you can smile and have a laugh with it, even with how bad it gets, force yourself to smile, it just releases these sort of this state of mind. It's like, we're still good. As long as we can still smile, we're still all right.
You're definitely going to feel better than if your head's down and you're thinking about how miserable you are.
Because it's so easy to live in that sad state, or the miserable state, or the bit sorry for yourself state. And, they're almost like a bit of self-sympathy state, like, woe is me. But then you realise, like, we all go through these places. We'll get to them when we're training or when we're doing these things. And it's so much easier just to go, you know what? Let's have a little smile with ourselves. We're all right. We're here.
Yeah. And you're doing something really cool.
Yeah, there's that. And it's also remembering that at the same time, it's like, it's a privilege to do this sort of stuff, It's a special thing to do. It's not, no one's forced any of us to do it. We get to do this of our own free will. all right, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it was your choice.
Yeah.
Your idea. Where did you sleep every night?
At home.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you'd be in hotels or something.
No, I've seen the price of London hotels these days. 11 days. No, so yeah, I live in South West London, so it was some days that was easier said than done. So like the end of day 5, Piccadilly line, start at Heathrow, finish at Cockfosters, North London. I had to get the tube home after that.
Yeah,
that must have killed you. Be like, I could have run quicker.
Honestly, so from Cockfosters right at the end of the Piccadilly line, all the way down to King's Cross, Victoria, then Northern Line back to Balham. That was, and it was heaving that evening as well. I was standing up on the tube. Bear in mind, I've been running since 5 a.m. We got to Cockfosters 7:30 p.m. 87k ran. And then we've got food straight away opposite the station in Cockfosters, and then had to get on the tube. And I
think you earned yourself the disabled seat, to be honest.
Honestly, you know what it was? It was quite funny because I was with Mike, videographer, and we were both just like standing there. I was in a vest. I must have stank. I'm sorry. But like I had a shout at 4 a.m. that day. It's now so late in the day. I'm just there in a vest looking awful. And we just look at each other, like start laughing, being like, this is actually quite an hysterical situation. And we just ran the entire Piccadilly line. And now we're having to take the tube home and there's nowhere to sit.
Oh my God.
And just grinning then. It wasn't until we got towards the last change onto Northern Line, finally saw a seat, and then people started like recognise because there's like less people on the train. People are like going, "Oh, you're the guy running the line." I was like, yeah. They're like, "What are you doing on the tube?" I was like, "Going home. Like we've just done the Piccadilly line and
Cheating.
next tomorrow this." And that was gone. That was the momentum built through the challenge as well with people sort of like, especially when we're getting on and off the tubes. I remember day one, there was like TfL staff at Camden Station with the Northern Line first day. And we had like the fold-up bike with us, and that's you're supposed to fold it up before you get down the escalators. And like the station master's giving us like, just like, what are you guys doing? Like my guy's got obviously a proper camera with him, and he's like, what are you filming for? Doing all this sort of stuff. Then just really aggressive, and like I always call it the enemy of the day. Like you always need like an enemy for the day, just to like have someone like in your head you're kind of going against, just being like, fuck that person. Like we're gonna like just someone to G you up a little bit. And the first few days, every day there was an enemy of the day. Could be a cyclist who would just like scream at me for being in a cycle lane. Whatever it was, and I was like, here we go. Like, just someone just be like, all right, fuck this person. Like, let's just go.
Guaranteed in London.
Guaranteed
Someone's going to be angry.
Problem was, after like day 5 or 6, when the event had a lot of good traction, there's lots of people, a lot of eyes on it there. But the first few days, people would honk horns to be like, what are you guys doing? Like taking up space in the road, whatever it was. Towards the end of it was like really nice. People were like, Johnny, all this. I'm like, can someone just have a go at us? Like, can someone like be the enemy of the day?
And that huge support that you had must have come from the huge like social media following you have as well, and it was all documented every day, Instagram, TikTok. Does that give you an extra pressure that you knew that it was being so publicly shown to everyone, or did that kind of help that hold you accountable in a way?
Good question. I think there's pros and cons to it. So the pros being obviously helps with support, helps with the main goal fundraising. So we had over things like 1,300 separate donations come in for the money we raised for Calm, the campaign against living miserably, which is great. And again, to raise the money you want to raise to charities, you have to do things in a public manner. Unfortunately, in this day and age, the best way of doing that is through social media, because again, from a cost basis. However, the biggest challenge with it was I wanted to make sure that the videos captured the emotion and the feelings in the day. And that's easier said than done. It's easy done with social media. It's a case of like showing the highlights.
Yeah.
We're like, I don't think people are that interested in seeing the highlights of this, like smashing the day. It's like, okay, let's just film like a bit of the highlights, but like what's going wrong that day? Like what's the jeopardy of the day? What's the struggles of the day? People are much more interested in seeing that because you're then showing them how you overcome those challenges, and people can take something from that. I make pretty much all my own content I make anyway, and I edit everything myself. Mike, who my videographer, I had to basically sit with him in the evenings. He knew the brief each day. He knew kind of what to get. And whilst we were running, he talked to me being like, I think I've got this for today, like this going on here, like any other problem. Then he just talked to me for a bit, pull the camera out, see what the messaging was for the day, where my emotional state was. And I said to him, no matter how bad I feel, like you pull that camera out. If I tell you to put it away, just tell me to fuck off and just keep filming. And because again, that's a part that is going to live on. That's a part that I can always look back on whenever I'm like a bit down about anything. I just pull up some of those videos and be like, yes, that was a good day.
Remember how much fun you had.
Yeah.
But what were some of the biggest challenges you faced, either physical or mental?
Sleep, lack of sleep was a big one. So 4 days out from the start of the challenge, news came through that we had that heat wave. So September, all of a sudden, it'd gone from high teens to forecast was like 34 degrees on the first day of the challenge. And they're like, I chose mid-September because it's still got long days, but typically not as warm as August. August was terrible this year. And then I was like, because a few weeks before the challenge, I was at my cousin's wedding in France. I remember running there and it was still 34 degrees. And I was like, this is fucking hot. And the next thing now I was like, no, that's day one, Northern Line, 76k. Right.
Through London as well, the traffic, it's just even hotter.
Traffic. And Northern Line follows big roads the whole way down. So it's like the air quality was terrible. Yeah. It was stagnant air as well. It was just, the first day was
so
a real...
oppressive. That
first day was like, welcome to the challenge. Like, that was the biggest kick in. That was like reality check. We started at just before sunrise. That's what we started doing. We pulled the days earlier. Like, right, let's not be up there as long as we need. Let's start at like 4:30. Like, let's just start and get as much time banked or distance banked in early as possible. And then we have to account for like cooling strategies. And then my nutritionist was like, you need to increase your carb amounts because you're burning more in the heat. Like, you need to have a change thing. So we have to change strategy. Then we have to constantly have ice cold water throwing on the body, throwing on the head. Like staying cool for me is the hardest thing with running, being a bit bigger. I find it really tough. Anytime I'm doing anything above 10 degrees, it really starts to affect performance. And I did Seville Marathon the start of this year, and my pacing just dropped off a cliff as it started to get hotter. And again, salt intakes, all these things, we were really, we did some testing before the challenge, just look at sort of what my sweat makeup was of different electrolytes and to see how salty it was. Turns out very salty sweater. So we have a constant flow of all these different things just to work out what works well. Then on some days we'd take too much electrolytes, and then the stomach's in bits. So it's like, it's really hard to find that balance. Then lack of sleep.
What do you eat?
Oh, I'm good. So I like to think I'm the reason why I can do this stuff is because I've got a bit of an iron stomach. So I could anything. Like, I'm good.
Even in the heat.
Oh, honestly, we'd chuck anything down. So we'd have come up with some, because the cool thing about running an ultra through London is whatever you want to go get, you can go get it. Like, there's no issues. Like, it's not like, before, you're dealing with like, when I was in America, they had run that ultras like PB&J sandwiches at every aid station, or like whatever people have like brought on a cooler. This one is like, whatever you want to go and get, like the crew would just go ahead and get it. So I'd always start each day with 8 crumpets with jam just for breakfast. It's like smash down like 2,000 calories worth of crumpet. I was like, this is I feel like a child right now getting it in. Because we average between 8 and 10,000 calories per day intake, which I didn't, no problem at all there. Just throwing it back. I actually did, this is another weird thing, like a lot of people would like to, on ultras, love to actually eat like physical food, because after a while gels can kind of twist the stomach a bit. Love a gel, go on gels all day long. So some of the days I got those Precision Hydration 90 gram of carb gels. I just, every half an hour have one of them, and I do that on some of the big days as well. I was like, I don't really feel like eating food, so I'm just gonna live on gels the entire day. Loved it.
I think you're the first person I've ever heard who's liked to gel.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, for me, it was just like, it's the perfect blend what I need.
Yeah.
And for some reason, my stomach can still hold on to just gels. And like, it wasn't passing through. I just felt great on them. And it was just an easy thing to eat. As long as I was doing tailwind in the bottle, so carb and electrolyte powder, not really cold, or scratch labs, really cold tailwind or scratch, scoot that down, smash the gels down, or like I made the old Rice Krispie square. And I was like, this is fantastic. So we just had the alarms going, the watches like, boom, okay, this on here, and just being very disciplined with it. Whether or not I wanted to have something, it's like, you're having something now.
Yeah.
And we just put that through. And then it was a case of working out how I was feeling. Is it an electrolyte thing? Is this a cooling thing? Maybe some water, maybe it's more carbs. And every now and then we want to maybe get like something a bit more proper in the stomach. So like chip shop chips, perfect. Really salty chip shop chips and ketchup worked well. Or McDonald's chips. We were like 4 large chips, chuck in a bag, load of salt, ketchup, and then like 3 or 4 like large Cokes from McDonald's. And they were just like, it tastes so different when you're that hot and that thirsty. It doesn't even, I can't describe what it tastes. I remember someone had ran ahead to a pub and got me like a pub Coke. Now they taste so much better from like out the tap.
Yeah.
I had this and I was like, this is like nectar from the gods. This is something
imagine.
beautiful.
That's so good.
I was like, wow, and it just brings you back to life. It's cold. It's got a little bit of salt in there, sugars. It just kind of hits perfectly.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, well, this is fantastic. So for me, that was never really an issue. Then I'd get home and because Adrian, my physio, would go head to mine as well. Mike's in the editing, and we just debrief the day. Adrian would go through my body, feeling things out, any work needs doing. Check out the toes, check out the feet. Only issue I had was one of the days we changed to, I had a slight pronation issue on my right foot, so we changed to a more stable shoe. there's a little, the toe box. I had an older edition, but they narrowed the toe box slightly on a new edition, and it just caused it to push in a bit. So then I had a real blister on one of my pinkies. I very rarely get blisters when I run, but this just
and the heat as well.
And then it's okay, we need to keep this clean, make sure it doesn't get infected. And while that's healing, we're going to change our technique. So we then change to like a more of a rocker shoe to have a slight heel strike. Because anytime I land forefoot, it was so painful. So then we changed to something that's going to change how we land a little bit, and just constantly change things up. Yeah.
It's amazing the support that you had from your team. I mean, I think the success of all of this comes down to the amount of preparation you put into it. So not just the training, but like you say, working out how many calories you needed, how often you needed to eat, the right shoes, how often you were changing your shoes. Like all of this was feeding into it going well.
Oh, absolutely everything. So like before, for the months leading up to it, I was doing once a week, me and Adrian would get together. I'd go run like a 30K. So then I'm on tired legs, go to see him. We then do a gait analysis when I'm tired. And let's then do a gait analysis of different shoes, different paces, different cadences. Let's see where the pressure's going to be. So then we could work through the shoe rotation for the challenge. Go, right, what shoes do I get on best with? When my legs are tired, at this pace, at this cadence. Okay, let's look at the landing pressures on where on my feet are we feeling finding the most pressure? And then he'd go, right, then he'd start customizing little like insoles or like little pressure pads around the foot. He goes, what we can do is, he goes, after 4 hours of this one, we should change to this insole, then to this. So he'd just go, right, come in, change your shoes, out we go again. I'm like, yeah, feel great. So like that was a big thing, because again, like I think those issues, or any time there's an issue starts arising, if it's not dealt with straight away, when you're out there for that long, it can grow and grow and grow.
And with all that prep and of course the huge challenge itself, how did you feel afterwards? What was the day after look like? We spoke about, the blues after a big event. I can only imagine with that huge build up what it must have been like.
It was, a lot of people kept saying this to me, like, God, this has been everything you've done the last 5 months. How must it feel it's over? And I was like, it didn't feel like, you get post-race blues. It didn't feel that at all, because it was like, the objective was done, which was run the tube, cool. The important factors was who got to benefit from the event, who got to come out and join in, who got to be a part of it, who got to take something from that and it be important to them, and the money we raised, all that sort of stuff. That was what I wanted to do it for. To be able to say I've done it doesn't, saying you ran the tube, cool. So it's a unique thing, but like that doesn't really do it for me. It's like, who's been inspired by it? Who's now, seeing what happened, what we did, or joined in, or many of those amazing people I met during the challenge who've now gone like, okay, I want to go do something, or I want to use that attitude and take it somewhere in life. That was the important factor, is having an impact and making a difference with that. Because I felt we got that, I was like, we actually did that. That was worth so much more to me than being like, I've just done this. Because that's just, okay, cool. We're like, people do challenge all the time. Like, I'm not going to sit around and be like, I'm super special for doing that. It's like, no. It's like the impact is what matters. And that was, for me, so important. So afterwards, I was like, cool. Because as I look at it from another perspective, maybe what if, people didn't get behind it? What if, it was the content didn't work? What if all these things? What if no one really turned up to it? What if we didn't hit a donation target? All these things there. And imagine finishing that with a couple of people around me and like, okay, cool, like, well done, something. Like, then I would be like, then I would have post-race blues. So I'm like, well, I did it, but I didn't feel the way I thought it would. Doing it this way in the public eye, yes, has its risks, because you're also publicly having to sort of expose yourself to a way of like opening yourself up to criticism, opening yourself up to anyone and their opinion, and everyone's got an opinion on things. No matter who it is, what it is, being on the internet, you are going to have people constantly be like, what, that's wrong, this is wrong, shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't be doing that, shouldn't be this. Like, you have a constant bombardment of people's opinions, and you have to just ignore, completely fucking ignore, listen to the team, listen to everyone, listen to those who've done that before, been in that world before, and that's it. So it does mean I'm quite like good at not drowning that sort of noise out, but it's still, you're aware it's there. And you're also aware that there are people out there who are probably thinking, oh, I can't wait to see him like fail. Yeah. There are going to be people like that. As much as there are great people out there in the world, there are people like that. And there was people, I'd see random comments being like, oh, I wonder what day he's going to fail on or pull out on, this sort of stuff. It's like, thanks for that. Like, I'm midway through getting a massage. I'm like, oh yeah, cheers, mate. Like, but
the internet's a cruel world, isn't it? And social media, and people kind of forget that there's a person behind it.
100%.
How do you deal with that?
You just do. Like, I mean, I think the people I take advice from, I'm very careful of. It also means the people I take criticism from is a handful of people. And I'm not too fast. I mean, I remember during the build-up, there was 3 people who would, everything I'd post would be messaging me in the back of it being like, your training is completely wrong. Or like non-stop and paragraphs and paragraphs. And they're like, I've been doing this for this many years. Or explain all this sort of stuff there. And I'm like, I'm not like stop it. Like, I appreciate you giving the attention to this, but like, you're not my coach. You haven't done this before. You're not in this world. Like, I'm not listening to you in that sense there. So it was a case of like understanding that when you do anything public, people are going to voice their opinion. But realistically, it's like, there's something I heard Chris Williams say the other day. It's like, most people don't even like themselves. So why should you care what they think about you? I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
So really, realistically, it's like, I care about the opinions of those who are in this arena, who are in this space, who've been through this sort of stuff before because they've got insights into stuff. My team, my coaches, those close to me. But apart from that, it's like, you just have to, because there's so much information, there's so much advice people want to throw their hat into the ring. People want to give you their advice. We all got advice for everyone, but it's just knowing which to take and which to choose. Otherwise, you will get pulled in so many different directions, and like you won't know where to look and where to focus on. So I think with these sort of things, with anything, like there's multiple methodologies to everything. One coach says one thing, another coach says another thing. You should be doing this, you should be doing that. It's like, they're both not wrong.
Yeah.
But you got to pick someone to listen to. You can't listen to everyone's opinion. You can't give everyone the same weight to everyone in the space there. So it's just a case of that, really.
Yeah, I think that's very important for a lot of people to hear as well, and just be able to block that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so after this challenge, you must now want to get on to the next challenge. What's next for you?
Oh, we got something special brewing. So I wanted to give myself a little bit of time, because I've gone from when I first started like proper running through to from that first training for that 100k last year. I've gone from that to a training block for a marathon, training block for a half marathon, training block for a 50 miler, training block for Run the Line. It's been like 15, 16 months of continuous event block, without, I'd take a week off afterwards. And then we go, right, next block. Like, let's do the foundation work. Let's do 2 weeks of prep, and then we're into a block because I've got this booked in the foresight. So I wanted to give myself a good 2 months of like, we're not training for anything now. Next thing, I'm not going to say exactly what it is because we're drawing up like the whole launch prep for it. I can say it's one continuous run, 260 kilometers. It's going to take about 40 hours to do.
No sleep.
No.
Oh man.
So it's cool in the sense of, I don't think anyone's done it before, but I still need to check in to see if anyone, because you know what it's like in this world. There's always someone crazy out there who someone randomly made like 30 years ago did it. But it's cool one, finished in London as well. Okay. Starts not too far from London as well, so we do hit. Yeah, it's got a uniqueness to it. But multi-days are fun, but I wanted to see what it's like to go through like a whole period. So, and again, that's in the 25th of May next year.
Okay,
that weekend.
So training will start pretty soon.
Yes, I've got a 70k capital, so country to capital ultra January 6th. That's the next thing I've got as like something to see me over. And then pretty much after that, we start training for this one, which I'm excited about because, again, it's you finish and you're done. Just keep going.
And it's the unknown that you like as well.
It's the unknown, like having not gone that far. But my team want me to do like a 24-hour run in prep. I've got the speed project coming up as well in California. So that's like a part of a relay team from LA to Vegas over like a 48-hour period.
Oh, cool.
So that's again playing with sleep deprivation. So it's all little tests. Yeah. I've got to do a 5-day hike where I just hike for like 14 hours a day and then sleep and then do it again to get like prepared to be on your feet that long. So it's quite a unique training methodology, and it's also quite fun as well. Like it's not just standard training and distance running. There's other elements to it. So for me, it's like again, there's the big step into the unknown, but like the 4 or 5 months of prep into it, I'm like, that looks like so much fun. Like I'm going to learn so much about all these different things.
Being so mentally strong throughout that distance on no sleep is a whole different element. And will you be putting all of this on TikTok, on social media?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can stay tuned and
certainly are.
Follow along.
We're moving into the to YouTube now as well, just because we've got a good team. We know what our messaging's like, and I think as well with some of these events, it would be the best place to document it would be in a slightly longer form, just to add a bit more nuance and a bit more show a bit more to it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And again, it's the event's gonna be great, but for me, it's like let's see this block. Like I'm already, my coaching team are all putting elements together of like what are we actually going to need to be able to get to this point. Like I sit in my room, I have a big whiteboard, I've done this for years now. And I write out every Sunday, I write out the week. What's this session, this session, this session. And there's something so special about going through the week. Tick, 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 ticking it off. And that for me, I think it's comes down to an element of a massive amount of, self-worth and self-value comes from that. Self-esteem, comes from being able to say to yourself, hey, I'm planning this out. I'm going to go and do this and tick it off. And it's like, it doesn't feel like, I'm sure you get the same thing. It's like the decision's already been made. You're not waking up going, oh, I've got this on my schedule today, but it's like,
yeah, you've got to tick the box
on the board. Just put it on the board, tick it off. That literally is it. No matter what, and then no matter what is on the board. Like I remember during our testing weeks, just test for the run line, we'd do test week where we'd do like a 35k into 15k, 35k, 15k, 35k, 15k. And I'd be on the board. And then also it was like, oh yeah, and after one of these 35Ks that evening, go to the gym, train legs, so your legs are more fatigued the next day. It's like, cool, right, sweet, like,
do it.
It's on the board, let's go and do it. There's something so special that you develop, and it's not that it's disciplines, whether it's whatever it is, but it's just the feeling you get of accomplishment of going, hey, I've said I'm going to go do something, and we're doing it.
You've achieved something every single day.
Every single day, and that's it.
Well, we cannot wait to follow along. It'll be so exciting to see what you do. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all about your amazing adventures. And stay tuned for the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us for 5 Miles Easy.
See you next week.